Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 292, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley just ended, and this is going to be my post-fight recap for solely the main event. I'll also be doing a full card post-fight as well. I'll link it down in the description as soon as that's released, so you guys can go check it out if you want to see my thoughts on every single fight on UFC 292. But the main event, Aljamain Sterling versus Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean O'Malley gets a brutal second round TKO. He is your new bantamweight champion. And I want to say, oh, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this. But to be honest, I'm not shocked at all. And I know a lot of people think I'm a doubter of Sean O'Malley, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. But Sean O'Malley went out there and executed a picture-perfect game plan. Because the first round was Sean O'Malley circling well, avoiding the pressure of Aljamain Sterling. And then when Aljamain Sterling realized he wasn't really closing the distance on Sean O'Malley, Aljamain started to kind of fall back a little bit. And then Sean started to pressure. So they were kind of alternating pressure in the first round. Now, ultimately in the first round, not a whole lot happened. Aljamain Sterling landed some leg kicks. O'Malley landed a couple teep kicks to the body. But then towards the end of the first round, Aljamain Sterling kind of half-heartedly shot on a takedown, just used it to clinch O'Malley up against the fence and landed some shots up against the fence. I thought Aljamain Sterling won the first round. It wasn't a super eventful first round, but I thought it was pretty clear for Aljamain Sterling. But I thought O'Malley looked really good in that first round because his footwork looked on point. He was able to avoid and be super elusive in the first round against Aljamain Sterling. And I thought if Aljamain Sterling got a hold of him, I thought he'd be able to get him down, but he couldn't even get a hold of him until the last 10 seconds of the round. And even then, I don't think Aljo was really fighting heavily for a takedown because he knew it was coming to the end of the round. But either way, I thought it looked really good for O'Malley in the first round, outside of eating the leg kicks of Aljamain Sterling. And I think Aljamain Sterling might have landed 2 body kicks in the round as well. But then the second round, Aljamain Sterling comes out. He's a little bit more aggressive. You can see he's wanting to push the pace a little bit more. He lands a couple shots as he's kind of pushing in and backing O'Malley up against the fence. And then he shoots in on a takedown. He gets O'Malley up against the cage. O'Malley's defending well, kind of fighting the hands a bit. And then O'Malley starts to circle away from the cage. Aljo holds onto a single leg. O'Malley fights out of it, breaks it, disengages, and then's back out to the center, circling again. Aljamain Sterling goes right back to that pressure. And when he enters, he always enters very sloppy, and he leaves his chin up in the air. He never keeps his hands up. And he enters, he overextends. O'Malley, being the accurate striker that he is, cocks back a straight right hand, plucks it right on Aljo's chin, drops him badly. And then O'Malley, what the commentators weren't giving him enough credit for were the accuracy of his ground and pound shots. He just starts landing every single ground and pound shot. And honestly, I thought there was multiple times where Aljo might have been flash KO'd. I thought there was multiple times the ref could probably jump in. And then Aljo kind of starts scrambling a bit and then kind of gives up his back, gets to his hands and knees like he's used to being on all fours in fights. And then the referee jumps in. Now, I will say this. I do think it was a tad early stoppage, kind of at the point that he stopped it. It was a weird point that the referee stopped it. But I don't think it affected it. I think Aljamain Sterling was getting finished in the second round regardless. I think it was over for him. Also, that being said, I think it could have been stopped earlier. I know that sounds crazy, but just the point in time at which Mark Goddard stepped in, I thought it was the wrong point in time. I thought earlier, right after O'Malley dropped him and started landing ground and pound shots flush on Aljo's chin, just pounding him out on the canvas, I thought the ref could have stepped in multiple times. It looked like Aljo might have got flash KO'd a couple times. There was a couple times where he kind of turned a little bit to the side. He didn't look like he was moving a lot. The ref gave Aljo every opportunity. And then finally, when Aljo starts to scramble, the ref stops it. I have really no problem with the stoppage. I will say it is a tad early, but does not matter. I don't think it affects the outcome of the fight at all. So Sean O'Malley is your new UFC bantamweight champion. And what a performance this was. And forget about my opinion on the Petr Yan fight, because I do believe that was a robbery win for Sean O'Malley. To have it on your resume, to get Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling in back-to-back fights and win both of them, that is unbelievably impressive. I mean, that is so impressive. In the way he fought this fight, this was picture perfect. And I know I said I thought he lost the first round. It doesn't matter. This is a 5-round fight. He fought it picture perfect, even in the first round. And the short amount of time the second round lasted, nothing but teep kicks. Nothing but right up the center. Managing the distance. Where Aljamain Sterling likes to close the distance and look to wrestle, he was managing it very well. He wasn't throwing a lot of wild techniques. He wasn't throwing a lot of spinning techniques. And he was just able to be super elusive until he could find that kill shot. And he found that kill shot in the second round. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people, and I already had people on my live stream saying, oh, you doubted O'Malley. You said he was a fraud. Everything, for the most part, that I've said about O'Malley leading up to this fight and in the past was true. He had one of the worst resumes in the UFC to get a title shot. He had one win over an active UFC fighter, and it was Petr Yan. Everyone else is off the roster. And he got this title shot. I agreed that he deserved the title shot because regardless of what I think, he got a win over Petr Yan on the judges' scorecards. And he went out there and he stopped Aljamain Sterling in the second round, arguably the bantamweight GOAT. And honestly, I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at myself. I should have saw this coming. I've picked against Aljamain Sterling in every single fight in his title run. I picked against him in the first Petr Yan fight, the second Petr Yan fight. I picked against him in the TJ Dillashaw fight. I picked against him in the Henry Cejudo fight. And now this fight, I'm like, looking at Sean O'Malley's takedown defense against Petr Yan and the way he was giving his back up against the fence, I thought was a glaring hole. But at the same time, Petr Yan can close the distance with his striking. Aljo has some of the ugliest striking in the UFC. And I should have seen it coming because O'Malley, he's so accurate. He's so powerful in the feet. And Aljo's so sloppy on the feet. And I did talk about it in my prediction video where I say, look, if Aljo gets it to the ground, it's going to be a very tough night for Sean O'Malley. But Sean O'Malley, as much as Aljo's grappling on the ground is far superior to O'Malley, O'Malley's striking is that much better than Aljo's striking. So I feel like I should have saw this one coming. And this was a fight where you really had Sean O'Malley prove himself. I believe he did prove himself in the Petr Yan fight, even though I thought he lost that fight. And I talk about it. I've talked about it in plenty of videos where he showed that he belongs with the elite of the elite. He proved at UFC 280 that he is the elite of bantamweight. He fits in right in there with the top 5 guys. He proved tonight he's the best in the world in the 135-pound division. And he went out there and stopped Aljamain Sterling, who is arguably the bantamweight GOAT. If he's not, it's Cruz, but it's really debatable, and I think Aljamain Sterling is there. But he ends the title reign of Aljamain Sterling, and he made it look easy. Again, I thought he lost the first round, but not a whole lot happened in the first round. Aljo just landed some good hard leg kicks, some good hard inside leg kicks, and then had those few clinch shots at the end of the first round to really steal the round. But Aljamain Sterling executed his game plan perfectly. And I do believe what this comes down to is Aljo, he just closes distance horribly. And he's not as fast. Sean O'Malley has the speed advantage. And Sean O'Malley is so accurate on the feet, he will find your chin. And he found Aljamain Sterling's chin tonight. And then what I have to give him credit for, and I talked about it a little bit earlier in the video, is the ground and pound. You see some guys where they'll hurt their opponent, they'll swarm them to finish, and they'll miss every single ground and pound shot. Sean O'Malley, I would say maybe he threw 15 ground and pound shots. He probably landed 13 of them. And he landed them hard, too. Like, he was looking to put him out like he did. I think it was Thomas Almeida, I think, the follow-up ground and pound shots. When he initially landed the right hand, he almost walked off because Aljamain Sterling went face down. I would have not even criticized the ref. I would have said it was a tad early. I wouldn't even criticize the ref if he would have jumped in right away. That's how good that counter right hand was. So Sean O'Malley comes in with a phenomenal performance. He just had the perfect game plan. He had the perfect game plan to use his footwork, to use his speed, to use his counter striking. And what was really amazing to me and impressed me, once he started to get comfortable in there and he realized he was way faster than Aljamain Sterling, the fact that he started pressuring Aljamain Sterling backwards. Now, that's not when the KO came. Aljamain Sterling just got over-aggressive and got clipped. But in that first round, he started pressing forward and throwing teeth kicks and throwing some combinations. He looked like he was nervous early, and he even said that in the post-fight interview in the cage with Joe Rogan. But after he started to really settle in, he just waited for Aljamain Sterling to make a mistake. Aljamain Sterling, like he does, his horrible striking, just wades in, overextends, looks to just do that to eventually tie you up. And, he just wasn't able to do it in this fight. He tied him up really twice. One time he was actually looking for a takedown, and guess what? Sean O'Malley defended that takedown. He defended the wrist control. He broke the grip. He's defended the single leg, and he circled out, and then 10 seconds later, he lands the right counter straight and brutally finishes Aljamain Sterling. And there's only really one thing I hate about this, because I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, you're mad, O'Malley's the champ. I have video evidence. I was rooting for Sean O'Malley in this fight outside of, I hated that the UFC was trying to put their finger on the scale because they wanted Aljamain Sterling to lose. They knew Aljamain Sterling had a hard fight in May. They know he has a big weight cut, and they forced him to have a 3-month turnaround. And where Sean O'Malley's been sitting out for 10 months training for the grappler Aljamain Sterling. And I just thought that was unfair for the UFC to do this. And that's why I was rooting against Sean O'Malley in this fight. I had that video evidence right after this fight was kind of announced at UFC 288 in the post-fight. I discussed that. But I don't know if it would have mattered. I do think that the back-to-back weight cuts, I do think the quick turnaround for Aljamain Sterling was a factor. But I think I would pick Sean O'Malley again. I would pick Sean O'Malley to win this fight again. I mean, I never picked him the first time, but I'm saying if they had a rematch, I would pick Sean O'Malley to beat Aljamain Sterling in the rematch. And I just think the speed, the footwork, and just the elusiveness overall, and then the accuracy of Sean O'Malley is what won him this fight. I don't think Aljamain Sterling, the way he closes the distance, the way his striking is so sloppy, I don't think he can beat a guy who has elite striking like Sean O'Malley, especially when he comes in there with a perfect game plan. Now, the thing I hate about this fight, and the thing that really bothers me about this fight, is I knew if Sean O'Malley were to win this fight, I had a feeling it was going to be, oh, this guy doesn't deserve it, this guy deserves it. And I had the feeling the UFC is going to be, being over dramatic and really hyping up Sean O'Malley and then even trying to kind of pick and choose certain contenders. And it's already started. You heard Tim Welch. You had him whisper in Sean O'Malley's ear, Marlon Vera needs a beating in December. Because look, if you look at the top 5 of the bantamweight division, which Marlon Vera actually isn't even in, he's number 6. You see Merab at number 1, who deserves the title shot right now. That's not a good matchup for O'Malley. I think O'Malley can win that fight. He just starched Aljamain Sterling, but that's a tough matchup. Okay, you look at number 3, Henry Cejudo. He's not getting a title shot most likely. Number 4 would be Corey Sandhagen. He would be the other guy who's deserving, who just beat who'd he beat? Rob Font, and before that, he beat Marlon Chito Vera and dominated him. So it basically comes down to Merab or Corey Sandhagen. That's who should be next in line in the bantamweight division, and instead he's calling out Marlon Chito Vera, who he has that loss to from years ago where he got his legs just chopped up and he eventually got flash KO'd and stretched out of the cage with no serious injury. And honestly, this is a very inspirational story because Sean O'Malley, everyone said he was protected, which he was. Everyone said he hadn't fought the best level of competition, which was true. And he got thrown to the wolves against Piotr Jan, had a very impressive performance, even though I thought he lost in that performance, had a very impressive performance. And now he's the champion. I mean, to go from, I believe it was UFC 252 back in August of 2020, I want to say it was, to go from getting your legs brutally chopped and then shucked to the ground and flash KO'd with brutal ground and pound elbows and then stretchered out of the cage with no serious injuries to now going out there fighting Aljamain Sterling, arguably the bantamweight GOAT, getting a second round TKO and leaving as bantamweight champion with no serious injuries. That's inspirational, but the UFC is already building this Marlon Vera fight. Marlon Vera in no universe deserves a bantamweight title shot. Absolutely none. And the reason I hate this so much, and I love Marlon Vera. He's one of my favorite fighters. I like watching him fight. He had a pretty good performance tonight against Pedro Munoz, which I'll talk about in the full card post-fight. But he doesn't deserve the fight. He just got dominated by Corey Sandhagen literally one fight ago. Got dominated by him. And the only reason this matchup is to be made is because, again, you look at Merab. I think O'Malley can beat Merab. I might even pick O'Malley over Merab. That's a very tough matchup. Corey Sandhagen. I think O'Malley can beat Corey Sandhagen, but it's a very tough matchup. Marlon Vera, out of those 3 guys, is the easiest matchup for Sean O'Malley. And that's why O'Malley's smart. O'Malley's smart. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, this is the biggest fight out of the 3 because we have the backstory. I want to avenge my loss where I got flash KO'd. And now I can call out him. We can have the rematch. And that's the best matchup for me out of the 3 available options in the bantamweight division. And the UFC, I think they're going to run with it. So most likely you're getting Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2 in December, UFC 296. And the UFC's already acting like Sean O'Malley's a mega superstar. We've talked about this. This could have been his superstar making performance. I'm not sure he's a Conor McGregor yet. They're already showing the KO of Sean O'Malley side by side with Conor McGregor. And you have Dana White literally with a hard-on in the cage right before he wraps the belt around Sean O'Malley. And fair enough, I understand Sean O'Malley's a far more promotable champion than Aljamain Sterling. Even myself, I wasn't a big fan of Aljamain Sterling. But at the same time, to blatantly disrespect the belt like this, and I may have to make a dedicated video on this, let me know, to blatantly disrespect the belt like this. I know I'm kind of a purist in terms of meritocracy with title fights in the UFC, but now we have Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland. We're probably getting Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington, and then to have Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2 for the bantamweight title. What is this, WWE? That's what it is now. We're just giving whoever title shots. It doesn't matter if they've earned it or not. If it was up to me, I want to see Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. And I still think O'Malley has a good chance at winning that fight because Merab leaves his chin wide open as he rushes forward, spamming takedowns. And I don't think Merab has as good top game as Aljamain Sterling if he was able to get Sean O'Malley down. So I want to see that matchup. I don't think the UFC is going to do it. And Aljamain Sterling screwed himself because he would have had a case for a rematch. He would have had a case to get an immediate rematch. GOAT bantamweight champion. He got clipped. It was a competitive fight. But guess what? Before the fight, he constantly said, "Oh no, I'm going to 145." He would get smoked by Volkanovski. He realizes that now because he said, "Look, if Sean O'Malley's KOing me, what is Volkanovski going to do to me?" So I think Aljo made a massive career misstep in the lead up to this fight. But overall, I don't want this video at all, this post-fight for the main event, people to think I'm hating on Sean O'Malley. This was an amazing performance. This was the best win of his career, and this was the most validating win of his career. And I really do believe, I'm not predicting this by any means, but I like O'Malley's chances against a lot of these guys. I know I'm talking about how he's kind of making the career choice to kind of call out the best matchup. I think he can beat Merab. I think he can beat Henry Cejudo. I think he beats Henry Cejudo. I think he can beat Petr Yan in a rematch, potentially. I think he can beat Corey Sandhagen. Honestly, the fight I want to see, it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to happen. I don't want it for a title right now. I want to see that Sean O'Malley, Petr Yan 2 fight, 5 rounds. That is the fight I need. So I'm actually happy that Sean O'Malley won the belt in a way because Petr Yan can be champion again. He had 2 losses to Aljamain Sterling, even though one of them I didn't think he lost. I only think the only real loss for Petr Yan in the last 2 years was really the loss to Merab Dvalishvili. I didn't think he lost to Aljamain Sterling the second time. I didn't think he lost to Sean O'Malley. But either way, Sean O'Malley, one thing we can easily see, and this is something I look at in future champions, future contenders, and future GOATs of the sport, every time out they look improved. And Sean O'Malley took this 10 months off since UFC 280, since he got the win over Petr Yan. He took the 10 months off and he really worked on everything. He worked on everything and he went out there and got a career-defining victory, title performance against Aljamain Sterling. I cannot compliment him enough for this performance. But I really think the UFC propaganda over the next week, the next 2 weeks, is really going to be too much. I think it's going to be really too much. They're already acting like he's the next Conor. He's actually horrible on the mic. O'Malley's horrible on the mic. Now, that's not something I really care about all that much because I'm not interested in the trash talk. I'm interested in fighting ability. But Sean O'Malley, not that great on the mic. The UFC is just going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I just find it a bit annoying. But tonight, you have to give Sean O'Malley his credit. Unbelievable performance against a stylistically bad matchup for him. I feel like I should have saw this one coming. I really, truly feel like I should have saw this coming. Aljamain Sterling is never getting a title fight ever again. Dana White, the UFC, absolutely hate his guts. Dana White was literally standing there smiling ear to ear, and he was trying not to smile. And he was smiling ear to ear before he wrapped, or after he wrapped the belt around Sean O'Malley. Aljamain Sterling will never get another title fight again, in my opinion. Sean O'Malley gets it done, most likely fighting Marlon Chito Vera in December. Love this performance. He's a super exciting champion. He's an elite striker. He showed very good takedown defense in this fight for the one shot, really, that Aljamain Sterling had. And he showed great counters and an amazing fight IQ, and he's getting better. He's building his skill set from fight to fight. I can't wait to watch the title reign of Sean O'Malley. I think it's going to be very exciting. And I love, I know a lot of people complain about grappling this, grappling that. I don't care. I like grappling. But Sean O'Malley, very dynamic, very powerful, and very accurate striker. And I can't wait to see what his title reign looks like. And I'm really fantasizing about Sean O'Malley holding onto that belt until Petr Yan can earn himself a bantamweight title shot. I want to see that rematch for 5 rounds. But let me know what you guys thought about this main event. Who do you think Sean O'Malley fights next? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.